Eddie,
Yo,
are you ready
am I ready?
to rat and roll?
Yeah. I tried to do a Stephen Piercy.
That's hard to do. He has a very
It
unique voice.
is.
Nobody sounds like Stephen Piercy that I can think of right off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around it how to approach the vocal style, but it's like it's kind of if Dave Mustaine was like pitched up, had a little bit of helium in there, but not too much, but he was also kind of more effeminate. I don't know how to. I don't know how to describe it.
Mr. Piercy. We don't mean effeminate.
Nah.
Anyway, this has got to be the first time we've ever jumped right into talking about a band before we even did the intro.
Yeah, I've made some enemies already.
Yes.
Jokes aside, I love Stephen Piercy's vocal style. I think it's very unique and it fits the band completely.
Me too. This is going to be a fun episode. For those of you who are new, this show is actually called Cranked and Ranked. It's not just a show about Ratt, although today's show is about Ratt with two T's.
I thought we were Quiet Riot. You ever seen that scene from Simpsons? Where
no.
There's like they're like interviewing a clearly a glam band, but it's like the late 90s at this point, and they're like they lean over the drum kit and they say, "Hey, which one are we again? We're not White Snake, we're Poison. Says on the drum here we're Ratt." It's so funny. Just taking the piss out of it completely.
Interesting. Yeah, Cranked and Ranked is the name of the show, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Cranked and Ranked, another episode that clearly is going to be tangent filled again. That's just going to be our normal way of working.
That's the appeal.
We let some people enjoy the tangents, I think, more than the actual artist we're talking about. So probably in this case, many people, because I feel like a lot of people are on board with like the thrash and death and other stuff like that, but then we get to the glammy stuff, and I feel like some people probably tune in just for our nonsense.
Poser.
But yes, Cranked and Ranked, we rank artist discographies and other type shit. Today is the discography of Ratt, the quintessential 80s hard rock band, I would say. I don't know. Maybe they're not. You could make arguments for other bands that I think sum up 80s hard rock better, but they're certainly my favorite of the era. So yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've heard it described before that they have the perfect sugar to dirt ratio. Like,
yeah,
they never go too heavy, they never go too soft, but they have that perfect balance of what you need for something to be considered good hair metal. So yeah.
And as we'll get into later, they also didn't do things like all of a sudden seem like they were jumping on trends. No. They just did Ratt. So that's why I know a lot of people, when I said, quintessential 80s hard rock band, a lot of people would probably say Motley Crue. And I'm like, well, for a couple albums, they did pretty well. But then they started doing this thing where they were like, well, what's cool? Oh, we should be more glammy. Let's be more glammy now. Now we need to ride motorcycles. Let's ride motorcycles now. Anyway, but we're not. We did Motley Crue.
Now we need to be sober. Oh,
that's no fun at all. We did Motley Crue like years ago. So go.
That was like episode 2.
I think so. Yeah. But yes, as usual, here to guide you through this journey is me, your lovely host, Steven, aka Old Head, and with me, as always, the guy that brings all of the soul glow to Cranked and Ranked, Mr. Eddie Sparxx.
What's that?
Also bringing a killer T-shirt today for those of you who are in podcast land. He is wearing a Ride the Lightning T-shirt, but it's white. And that even seems more thrash. like that's, oh, and it's got the electric chair guy on the back. Like it's a great shirt, but like for some reason, like wearing a white t-shirt, like that seems more thrash than a black t-shirt.
I had a real white t-shirt thing the last couple years because I looked in my wardrobe and I thought to myself, I've seen a lot of like 80s photos of bands, and there is a startling presence of a lot more white shirts than there are these days. You know, it's very cool to turn around and say, the only color I wear is black.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, well, what if I want to go outside in the summer and I don't want to be wearing black all the time?
Well, you know what? You are lucky enough to be one of those people who is thin, and so you can get away with wearing white t-shirts.
I didn't used to be.
So those of us who are chunky, white's bad. White is bad. Any color is bad news. That's the biggest reason why I wear black. Like I think I look good in black, but it's mostly just, you know, what makes the love handles not pop out quite so much. And that's black. But you are true. You're right that like with thrash metal, you see a lot of white shirts, a lot of white shoes also. And I got that shit going on. That's the one thing, is that like you'll see me like if my going out outfit is black shirt, black jeans, white Adidas high tops. Like that's my uniform at this point. Or if it's during the summer, then I'm wearing some sort of colored Vans. That's kind of my thing. But you know what? We're not talking about any of those bands because those bands hated shit like the band that we are going to talk about today. And the really interesting thing to me, I'm glad that we're already on this because you know, you hear from bands, you know, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, all those bands, they hated like Motley Crue, Ratt, all these bands. But the thing that was always funny to me is that these thrash, I'm not going to name any names, but these thrash metal people, some of which seemed like they were complete jerks, but I love thrash metal. But they would see somebody with their hair teased up wearing like a Poison t-shirt or something, and they would call them a poser. But I'm like, they're not pretending not to like Poison. Yeah. They're being completely honest. Like if you're wanting to beat them up because you can't handle the shit that they're into, that seems like you're more of a poser. Yeah. Really. Like that's like doth protest too much. Like, do you have that Poison album at home, Paul Bailoff? I bet you probably do.
Even Gary Holt has said that thrash kids would go to Poison shows because that's where the girls were. Yeah. And like, you know,
and they wrote catchy ass fucking songs. And on the subject of Ratt, we're talking about today, they had fucking riffs. Yes, riffs for days. So without further ado, let's jump into it the way we normally do, which is where were you introduced to Ratt? And for me, I have a very clear memory. This was, I believe, in 1986. I think I might be getting the year wrong, but I think it was 86. I went with my parents to see a movie called The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy.
Yep.
And I was I still am a huge Eddie Murphy fan. And there's a scene in the movie where they sneak into this like biker house to like, I don't remember why they're there. Apparently they're just there so homegirl's shirt can get wet and you can almost see your titties. That seems like the real reason why they're there. But there's a song playing, and I remember like thinking to myself, like, this is fucking great. What is this? And so I asked my mom, like, hey, can we go to the record store and I'll pick up the sound? Because back then, like if a movie came out, you guaranteed you could go to the record store and there's a soundtrack for it waiting for you there. Some of them great, some of them not so good. But the Golden Child soundtrack had some okay stuff, but it had the song Body Talk by Ratt. And I was just like, this is one of the coolest things I ever heard. And this was around the time that I was already kind of getting into Bon Jovi and Cinderella. And I was already into Van Halen, but I was getting into like the 80s hard rock, the popular shit. And so I heard this and I was just like, this band fucking rules. And so that was that was my introduction to Ratt. And honestly, I didn't become like a huge fan. I was more like a song fan of Ratt for a little while. It took me a long time to finally get around to be like, oh, I should listen to like their whole albums and stuff. I don't know why they were a band that I didn't grasp onto, but once I did, I was just like, what? This is like some solid fucking shit from beginning to end. So yeah, that was my beginning way back in the 80s. How about you?
See, for me, I think Ratt was one of those bands where like I was getting into hair metal, like that sort of 80s hard rock stuff, and they were just one of those bands that, you know, is you have to, you know, check them out. They're one of the big ones. But the big thing that stood out to me was like I asked for a Ratt album for Christmas, but it turns out I didn't realize at the time that there was those like 5 album CD packs you can get that are like super handy. And I actually got, you know, that they're actually really good value. Probably steal some money from the artist, I have to be honest. But
I like the ones that they do where they actually, the CDs are in slips that look like album covers. Have you ever seen those?
Those are the ones.
Yeah, I like those. I don't collect CDs, but if I did, that'd be the way that I do it.
See, that was like just before I got really into collecting vinyl, because I was like, if I get a CD, I can have a physical copy, but also rip it to my iPod really easily. Got an iPod at the time. Wow, I'm old.
There's a part of me that misses my old iPod, because there was something about like, you know, you had a limit to the songs that you could put on there. And all it was like the little wheel, and everything was in black and white. Like the first one that I had, it was a gray one. But it was a paperweight. Like it was before they made the thinner ones. It was a little bit thicker. But there's a part of me that goes, that was kind of cool, because it was almost like back in the day, you know, you probably didn't go through this, but back in the day you would buy these big CD cases, and I knew a lot of friends who had these ones that could hold like 200 CDs, but I was like, I don't want to carry that around with me. So I always had the one that held like 50. So I always had to be like, what are the 50 albums I want to have with me at all times? And I would always,
the ones you put in the car, with the little slips. I got 2 of those.
But I would always like change it up almost every day. And I was such a nerd about it that once I decided to get rid of stuff, everything else had to be arranged in alphabetical order. So if I wanted to find it, I knew like where to go. So I was constantly just like taking CDs out, but I was also that dude that put the CD slip in front of it. So it wasn't just CDs in there. Cause I always imagine like being in a scenario at somebody's house where they're like, oh, what CDs you have? Oh, well, I have these. You could look at the liner notes if you want. But nobody ever cared. It was just me. It was just me having the CD liner notes in there with me. Anyway,
but it was there. It was there.
It was.
So just in case you find someone equally as nerdy like me, I'd be like, no way. Bo Hill produced this.
No, I have all of the people that I knew for the most part were the dudes that had the 200 CD things, and most of them were burned CDs where they had forgotten to write stuff on them. This was later on when that started happening, where people would have burned CDs, and I was like, well, what is on this? I don't know. I'm like, well, why is it in here? Like this like triggers my OCD. Like, why is this blank thing in here? Like, get it out of here. Anyway. So you got the 5 album collection of Ratt. Like, so that was Out of the Cellar through Detonator were in there?
Yeah. So it's the first 5 LPs that they had.
A good set.
It is a good set, because I remember listening through them and I was thinking, fuck man, these are all really good. Like, the vibe differs slightly from album to album. Like, that there is a distinctive Ratt sound and it's on all of them.
Yeah.
But like each one has like a slightly different, for want of a better word, ear flavor to it.
Yeah.
So, if I remember right, Round and Round is on the soundtrack for Vice City Stories, but this is actually one of those times where Grand Theft Auto was not the driving factor in me getting into a band.
Well, there you go. Sorry, Rockstar Games. Is that who does it? Rockstar Games?
Yeah.
Sorry, Rockstar Games. Today you're not going to get the props that you normally get.
Original album series wins this round.
Yeah. Um, and I'm clearly I'm a big fan. For those of you listening in podcast world, you can't see that I have um the first 5 albums behind me in vinyl and the first
Oh,
EP as well. And
sick.
honestly, this album right here, this is
Hmm.
what started my vinyl collection.
Wow, that's the
Out of
first one you got?
out of the cellar. But this you have to remember, this is recent because I had a whole lot of records when I was younger, sold all of them,
Oh,
and then I don't know how many years it's been now, 6 or 7 years now that I've been collecting vinyl. But the only reason I started, I had no interest in collecting vinyl, or I didn't know that I did. And so
yeah.
I went to a record store with a friend of mine, and I was just like, okay, well, I'll look through the records. And I found Out of the Cellar, a really good quality copy of it, original from the 80s. And they were
Yeah.
selling it for like $10. Because this was like a real hipster record store. So they didn't give two shits about Ratt, you know. So but
Yeah.
so I literally went, I just bought it, and my friends all like, well, you don't have a record player. I'm like, I guess I'm getting one.
Hmm.
And so it was, within, I think it was later that day I went to fuck, I don't remember where I went. Fry's, I think. I don't know if they have Fry's there. Fry's is like an electronic store here. That's not
They
real,
might do.
doesn't really exist a lot anymore. I think there might be one in Austin, but I bought like the cheapest Audio Technica that I could find, just to like make sure I wanted to do this. And very quickly, I think I upgraded from that within a month, because I was just like,
Hmm.
nope, I want this. I want to do this now. And then the rest is history. And all my money has now gone into records because of Ratt. so, yeah, there you go. Anyway, but yeah, so we're not going to be talking about the EP, because we're actually only going to be doing the 7 full-length studio albums from Ratt. And I mean, we could talk about the EP, but I mean,
Main thing I wanted to ask is, I know that the girl on the front of Out of the Cellar is Tawny Kitaen,
yeah.
who would go on to be David Coverdale's wife, now ex-wife, now
And
unfortunately.
also, didn't she also date somebody from Motley Crue and Poison? Like, didn't she made the rounds, if I remember right?
I gotta be honest, if you appeared on the cover, there's probably there's a
I mean, yeah,
chance that some shenanigans went down.
and Ratt,
Not
but
not
yeah.
not naming any names.
But what was your question? Is who's on the cover of the EP?
I was gonna say, is that Tony's legs? I've heard some people say it's hers, but
I've heard it is hers too, but I don't know for sure.
yeah.
Honestly, it's one of the worst album covers I think I've ever seen, because it's so just like,
Yeah.
what's the band name? Ratt. Cool. So you guys want things kind of sexy, right? Well, here's some legs with some rats on them.
Yeah. Are they even rats? They look more like mice from here.
They're probably mice. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that makes it even funnier.
Yeah.
But honestly, I've never wanted to be close enough to tell the difference between a rat and a mouse. I just know that I don't want either one of them around me, because they're creepy.
What you don't see is, because it's cut off like at her thigh, is the fact that up top she's like, ah,
Yeah.
like looking down at these
Probably.
fucking rats, dude.
And that's a great EP. But yeah, we're sticking to the full-length studio albums, ranking them from what we think is the least good to the most good. And because I like all the Ratt albums.
Yeah.
And I actually did my own ranking a couple years ago. But my ranking has changed since then.
Oh.
Yeah. So let's just fucking jump into it. As usual, I throw it over to Eddie Sparxx to start us off with his number 7 Ratt album.
Cool. So my number 7 Ratt album is the 1999 self-titled Ratt album called Ratt.
Not to be confused with the EP called Ratt. This is the album called Ratt.
Yes. It's the first album in almost a decade, and it's the first not to feature longtime guitarist Robin Crosby or bassist Juan Crucia. The band trimmed down to a 4-piece with just DeMartini on guitars, Warren DeMartini,
Hmm.
and Robbie Crane on bass. Again, this is a case of much like the recent Judas Priest controversy that came up, where they were like, "Oh, we're gonna come back for our 50th anniversary, but we're only gonna use one guitar." Where it's like having two guitars was a massive part of their sound.
I
So
think
it's like,
I just read that they've gone back from that now.
yeah, I saw that this morning as well. Yeah, it was a yeah. What were we thinking? But
It's the guitar player is fucking Andy Sneap, who was in, God damn it, he was in a classic UK thrash metal band back in the day, and now he does a lot of production work.
yeah,
Um, which one was he in? Fuck, I don't remember. Anyway, sorry, I'm gonna lose my UK thrash metal card right
you're
there
gonna lose a
because
patch for that one.
I couldn't remember the band name of the band he was in, but he was in one of them.
um, well, basically, I went into this album thinking I was gonna get something, and I did. But I'm gonna go into my notes. I kind of wrote them as I was listening to the album.
Had
So
you heard
this
it before this?
this was a first time listen,
Okay, okay.
and granted, it could be one of those 90s grower albums, but these are my initial thoughts. So yeah, I haven't sat with this album for very long. I've given it like a couple goes around,
Yeah.
but yeah, Over the Edge. I did go into this album expecting something pretty sleazy, but this was a pleasant surprise. This song sounds promising, not 80s level, but in terms of like a late 90s release from a hair band, it's an enjoyable rootsy hard rock song.
Yeah.
Live for Today is like the spirit of the band is in the song's lyrics, but the music is your typical late 90s hard rock comeback track. Gave Up, Given Up is this sleazy groover with a light dash in of Zeppelin and alternative rock. We Don't Belong, track 4, ballad time. Kind of psychedelic at points. You can hear a little bit of post grunge in this album, but everyone was doing that at this stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one was immune to it.
Well, I mean, no new bands were doing it. It was only old bands that were still throwing in bits of grunge.
Yeah, true. Oh man. Breakout is this kind of rocking track, but to be honest, like this isn't the worst sounding this kind of album from this era, but again, this sort of drier production doesn't suit this music in my opinion.
Yeah.
Tug of War is this deceptively ballady opening which goes into a hard rock song. And then Dead Reckoning, again, this album kind of showcases how, like, all the glam bands kind of miss the point with their comebacks in a way. Like, sure, what they were writing had the sleazy hard rock feel, but they didn't go all in with it, with, like, the big production that they used to have. Like, this, ironically, is one of the album's better sounding tracks, but it really highlighted to me what's missing from a lot of albums during this time. Like, if everything was just that tad bit wetter on the verb, it would probably elevate this album like 2 more points out of 10,
Yeah.
But they didn't. They were still. You can tell that they were still a little bit, reluctant to embrace what made them so stadium like.
I think at this point nobody else was embracing that sound either, because
that's where I'm going. Yeah,
I mean, if you remember, like, it wasn't until the early 2000s that all of a sudden there seemed to be like a second wind, where all of a sudden people wanted to go to these 80s band revival kind of tours.
Yeah,
but the late 90s, it was like you were supposed to bash that music, and so all these bands were just like, well, what do we do? We still want to make music. It's so they a lot of it was them probably second guessing themselves in the songwriting and in the production.
Yeah, and it kind of shows in this album. You got Lovesick. This song is a bit of a tune, I have to admit. I did like this one. It Ain't Easy. This has what I would consider a Tom Petty kind of feel. I know I mentioned a Tom Petty reference last time, but
yeah,
there is a certain vibe to it. All the Way, meh. So good, so fine is a up tempo driving rocker. You know, I got to be honest. I expected something with this album, and I got it. It's another late '90s comeback record that suffers from the same thing many late '90s comeback records suffer from. It doesn't commit hard enough to what made people like you in the first place. You know,
Yeah.
you listen to something like this and you think, okay, they're playing hard rock music and this is pretty cool. But then you listen to something like You're in Love and you're like, fuck yeah,
Yeah.
party. Like it's subdued.
It's the difference between writing a song using your brain and writing a song using your dick. Like
yeah.
that.
Straight up. Yep. Like it's subdued 90s production, late 90s production is at odds with what the band is known for, and that's big fucking glam metal for stadiums. You know, barring perhaps a couple of tracks, this album to me is sonically boring, as brutal as that sounds. It's not one I'll likely revisit compared to the rest of their catalog, but you know, that's just solely based on the absolute benchmarks of 80s rock that they set, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So that is my number 7.
Yeah. It's also my number 7. I'm not even going to fuck around because I'm pretty sure it's probably everybody's number 7. It's but I have to say that I in the past, I was more harsh on this album because comparatively speaking, it is the blandest thing they did. And I always kind of was annoyed at the attempt to sound 90s ish that when any band did it. So some bands were able to pull it off and make it at least a kind of enjoyable album. And this, I guess half of this album is enjoyable for me, but it does feel pretty bland and uninspired, or like I said, them second guessing themselves. And so maybe they didn't put all of what they wanted into the album, or maybe they just weren't feeling it. I don't know. But it's funny that you said the word meh, because like I wrote that in my notes because a lot of the songs to me have really cool parts and then they lead into meh parts. So the song kind of falls apart where you go, it's the Ratt edge is mostly gone. And unfortunately that just kind of leaves a generic rock band with an amazing guitar player. Cause let's be honest, Warren DeMartini is amazing on anything. He elevates anything. So if he wasn't on this album, this would be even more forgettable, but at least occasionally you hear some of what makes him great on this album. But the big thing for me, like with you, is the dry. It almost like if you listen to this album right after, like, you know, Reach for the Sky, this sounds like a demo.
Yeah, it does.
That was intended to go to the studio later on and be recorded. But so many bands did that because I feel like that's what everybody thought they needed to do. And I hated it back then. Like there were some bands that the dry production benefited their sound, but there were other bands I'm always like, why do you got to do this? Like I was like, and I was a young person. I'm like, who are you catering to? Like who is demanding this dry production?
You're actively making yourself sound worse. Why?
Yeah. You know? What's the fucking point? But yeah, this album is not awful. Like listening to it, I've listened to it several times over the years, but I have to say now, like to me, it's nowhere near great, but it has its moments. And it's some standout parts here and there, but maybe you get a little glimpse of the Ratt that you love, like here and there, but it's not enough. And so it ends up being a really disappointing album, and in turn becomes the Ratt album that you'll never go to, because they've got 6 other albums that you would go to before this one. And so, it's okay. It's just, it's their worst. And so it's also my number 7.
Cool. So with that one out of the way, I'm a hop into my number 6.
Here's where I think this could get interesting here. Cause I've got a couple of controversial placements.
Oh,
but but coming at it from your angle, like I'm really interested to know, like, from here on where everything stands.
Okay, cool. Let's dive into the interesting shit. Let's go. My number 6 is 2010's Infestation.
Okay.
This is a good album. Like this is their first album in over a decade, and it features Carlos Cavazo from Quiet Riot filling in the spot of late guitarist Robin Crosby, rest in peace. When I heard Eat Me Up Alive, I was like, was this like a song they just forgot to record for an 80s album? Because it has that Ratt thing that makes them what we love about them, that the riff in that is mean. The songwriting is slightly more modern, but the production this time around does still put an emphasis on sounding big and chunky, albeit with a modern sound. The guitar solo at points legit took me back to the 80s. I forgot I was listening to something from 2010.
Yeah.
Like, Warren DeMartini's got this such an identifiable sound that just takes you right back to the mid 80s, and it's fucking rad. Best of Me, I'm sold. They've captured it. Sure, the production overall has a few hallmarks of the late 2000s, early 10s loudness war stuff, but the reverb heavy emphasis on a stadium sound is there, and the songs are there this time around too, even if it is a little bit brick walled at points. A little too much. Funny. The guitars on this record are soaring, awesome stuff. Look Out Below's got some stripper riffage on it, me likey. Last Call is a upbeat bad boy racer kind of song. Lost Weekend. Now, when Lost Weekend came on, I was like, yes, rock, yes, like Beavis. But as good as it gets, it is a bit more bluesy, but still big. Garden of Eden's a cool track. Take a Big Bite is quite a heavy one. Take Me Home is this ballad-ish kind of thing. Don't Let Go. It wouldn't be a true 80s throwback without a flange effect snare drum fill closer, Fucking love that. Like this right here is the album that they should have come back with in the first place.
Yeah.
This one, they're like, okay, we're allowed to be 80s again, Yeah. Like this album feels like the next logical step from Detonator, even if that logical step took 20 years with a kind of shit sandwich situation in the middle.
Yeah.
But it's a more modern take on their sound, but everything that made Ratt the great stadium band of the 80s performance wise is here. Even if they didn't have the absolute fucking Chad that was Robin Crosby.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, that is my number 6, Infestation.
And also my number 6. So we're getting these recent albums out of the way. So I agree with everything you said. My biggest gripe about this album is the production, because it's brick walled and it's over compressed, but that's just a thing that so many bands did.
Yeah.
And I hate it because it just sounds awful. It's like one of those things that you can't turn it up in your headphones too loud because you're just like, it doesn't work that way. So I love the open production of like their first like 4 albums. Just like those are things that just sound good, cranked way the fuck up. I guess even Detonator probably has that, a little bit of that too.
Yeah.
But Infestation, like the big thing, like the attitude is back. The Rattitude.
Yes.
And the riffs are back. Warren DeMartini pulling out the riffs. So I don't really know when it comes to like the riff writing, how big of a hand Robin Crosby had in that. I don't know if it was all Warren, because coming out of Robin's mouth, he always seemed like a dude that was like, yeah, Warren, lays down the licks and I'm kind of behind him, just backing him up. but I'm all like, is he selling himself kind of short? Like, did he come up with some cool riffs too? And he's given Warren all the credit or something, you know?
I'm gonna be honest here, and I mean this in the nicest possible way. Robin Crosby was the fucking eye candy of that band. He could have played wrong notes and nobody would care, because they would immediately turn around and be like, "Hey, if I complain at him, he's gonna steal my fucking girl."
Yeah.
So
What is sexier than a really good looking dude who's also what he was like 6 feet tall and built like a brick shit house? Like he was he was a big dude in like the good way.
He is absolute 100% genetically unfair human being, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, unfortunately, he died of AIDS, so that's that was unfortunate. In the early 2000s, I believe, is when he died. So that's a sad thing.
Sad.
But I mean, he fucking lived the rock and roll life.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was a great guitar player too, but I just don't know. I haven't there, you know, I've never read into Ratt enough to know the ins and outs of the songwriting. I just always gave the credit to Warren, because he's the guy that when the riff is being played in the video, when it starts, you see Warren playing it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, you know, clearly he's the man. But anyway, so the riffs are here. A big thing that keeps this album at number 6, even though I do like it, aside from the production, is the fact that some of the songs, like some sound like they could be outtakes from the 80s, but some of them sound like a band that's like, hey, you remember that song Lack of Communication? Let's do a song that sounds just like that and call it something else. There's a lot of those, just like take the template of a song that worked and then write a new song on top of it.
I'm looking at all of these fucking song titles. Last Call, Lost Weekend, Last Call.
Can you imagine? I think Lost Weekend actually does sound kind of like Lack of Communication. Anyway, so there's a kind of a sameness to it, but it's got a fun energy to it. It sounds, there's a good amount of dirt in it, as you would say, which is like the Ratt that I love. But you know, has some great songs, has some okay songs, but overall it's just like a super enjoyable trip in the Wayback Machine for a little bit. But I have to leave it here, because it's like, well, you know, the reason why I like this is because it sounds kind of like the first 5 albums, but that's only because they already made those first 5 albums, so clearly those have to go higher up than Infestation. And so yeah, that's also my number 6. But here, I think here is where things might get interesting. I don't know if you can hear my dog barking.
I can.
Yeah.
Which one's that?
This is now number 4. We now have 4 dogs.
Holy shit!
Because we rescued another one. Because there was
the pit bull told her friends.
My pit bull. So we rescued my pit bull, but then there's this little schnauzer that's just been roaming around the neighborhood for like a month, and he keeps like walking up to the car, and like his hair is grown in front of his face. We got him a haircut, but his hair had grown in front of his face to where he would just walk up to cars like not knowing where he was going. I'm like, oh, this dude's gonna get his ass killed. And so I would see him just like bombing down the street, like, hey, I'm going somewhere. But he was just out there for like a month. And finally my wife is like, let's see if he'll come up to the house. And very quickly he did. And then my wife grabbed him, and we did that whole thing. We went and made sure he wasn't chipped and searched online to find out if anybody was looking for him, and they weren't. So we got him fixed up. We got him chipped. We took him to get a bath and a haircut, and he's now part of our family. So that's who you heard. My new his name is Melvin.
Oh, that's awesome.
My wife came up with that name. But he's adorable. But that's, if I don't even know if that actually came through in the recording of the podcast or the video, but
he made a cameo.
another furry friend in my house, which is fine. Like I love dogs, and
nice.
And we seem to be lucking into getting these super sweet dogs that just come in and immediately are cool with the family.
Yeah, you just get the dogs like for free. It's the feeding, obviously, that eventually, and the bills, but you know.
Well, it's because we live in a neighborhood where there's just dogs roaming around everywhere. And unfortunately, that also means that at least once a month, there's a dead dog somewhere. And
Yeah.
so, I see these dogs and I'm just like, shit, man, if we can help, we might as well. I don't
Yeah.
know. that's how I am anyway. Anyway, all right. We're so now we're back. We're on to our top five
We are.
albums.
All of which I would consider 80s era, despite the fact one is technically in the 90s.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was recorded in the 80s too, and then released in 1990. So we can lump them all in there.
Yeah, might as well. The 80s didn't fully end until 93 anyway.
Yeah, basically.
So yeah, my number 5 is album number 5, and I've gone for Detonator.
Okay, cool.
My number 5. We have a non-80s but totally 80s 1990s album.
It sounds absolutely 80s.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna jump right in. Intro to Shame is an intro to Shame, 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 which is this slithering, nasty, sleazy opener. You can kind of tell that this is a post Guns N' Roses glam album because it has a bluesier, harder edge to it than some of their albums.
The intro to Shame, if I remember right, in the there's a Ratt home video that came out in like 91 that has like the making of all the videos from Detonator and then some other stuff. But in the video, there's a point where they're telling you what all the songs were called, and when they're playing Intro to Shame, and it just shows Warren doing his little solo-y thing, the title below it is War in D. That's the title. So I think it was originally called War in D, or that's what they decided to call it later, because they didn't call it Intro to Shame in the video. It was called War in D.
No way.
So anyway,
that's cool.
Anyway, that's just a little tidbit. At least that's what they call it in the video. And funny enough, all the way through that video, fucking Little Richard just happens to be there. Like, he's not in any of their music videos. He's in a Cinderella music video, but he's just like hanging out backstage, being Little Richard with Ratt.
That's fucking cool. Do you think they were like, hey, can we like hire out fucking Little Richard for a day? Just hang out.
Everybody
with us
loves
no
Little
reason.
Richard, so I'm assuming it doesn't matter. Like, he probably just shows up. I think he knew that's where the parties were, and so he's like, "Where are these white boys?" Whoa! He like shows up. he does his whole thing, and then like shows up. I don't know, because I mean he had to have been down with those bands, because not only is he in that, but he also was in the Shelter Me video from Cinderella, which was also 1990. So
wasn't he in the music video for Elvis Is Dead?
By Living Color, also in 1990. So he was literally like making the rounds with the rock bands in 1990. But you know what? It's almost like he tried to show up and be like, hey, this is some great music you're playing. Guess who started this shit? Me, motherfucker.
Oh, man. Imagine being able to like turn up and be like, yeah, you're here because of me.
But you know what? But nobody would argue that fact. Well, I mean, people that have their shit together would not argue that fact. There's a handful of people that we owe everything to, and Little Richard is one of them. So
yes, completely. So after Shame, 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 we get Loving You Is a Dirty Job. Yeah. So good. Strip riffage in full effect right here. This whole song just makes me want to throw my hard-earned money at women way out of my league. Scratch That Itch has some slide guitar in there. This is pretty late in the glams game where everyone had a slide part in the song. There's all, we talked about this in the Cinderella episode, where there was like everyone turned around and it was like, no matter whether or not it was appropriate or not, there was always a birdie like in the song. And this is one of them. One Step Away, one step away.
One step away. That song should have been a hit. I don't know why it wasn't a hit.
I agree. It is a it is an end credits victory song.
Yeah. I mean, I'm feeling like a lot of the problems with this album is that I think it came out about 2 years too late. Because I think if that song had come out 2 years prior, I feel like it would have been a huge hit.
Yeah, and if Rocky 5 had come out a year prior, it wouldn't have been like him losing his money. It would be, he's gonna fight 2 Russians at the same time, and this would be the fucking soundtrack.
No, Rocky 5 should have been he travels back in time and fights a Nazi like that. Like that. I don't know why they didn't do that. They dropped the ball.
That's literally the plot to Kung Fury.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it is. Except he's not a boxer in Kung Fury. He's, but still.
He knows Kung Fu. He knows Kung Fu. It's a type of fighting. We can keep it.
Yeah. I think I've seen Rocky 5 one time because I was just like, this is not really what I wanted from a Rocky movie. Thanks. Because I realized that the first Rocky movie was a little bit more serious, but I was a kid of Rocky 3 and 4. Rocky 3 and 4 were like the shit to me. And so like once they went back to trying to be a little serious with things, I'm all like, yeah, it's great and all, Sly Stallone still's got it, but man, come on.
Yeah, it's one of those where it was like, I did enjoy it, but it did bum me out because I was like, where's the robot gonna live?
Man, I remember when Rocky 4 came out, I think I was in 3rd grade or something like that, but I just remember going to see it at the theater on opening night with my parents. So excited about it. And when you went, they gave you a free button that was like a big oversized button, and it had the 2 gloves with the explosion in between them. And I wore that thing to school for probably a month every day. I'm like, never forget. Rocky beat up the Russian.
Yeah. He effectively ended the Cold War. Man.
That's a fucking kill. That's a killer movie. It's probably not considered good, but hey, who the fuck cares?
Good and enjoyable, are
sometimes sometimes they go together and sometimes they don't. So it's, that's why I've griped about this before about movie and music reviewers being up their own asses so much that it's just like, look, you have to look at what is the intention of the movie. Did it complete that intention fully? Yes, 5 stars.
Yep. Did it do what it set out to do?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's like were there snakes on the plane? Yes, 5 stars. That's why you went to that's why you went to the movie. Now, if you go to Snakes on a Plane and there's no snakes, then then you can give it a bomb kind of review and be like, this is not the movie I was expecting. Anyway, sorry.
That's cool. That was worth it. Completely worth the tangent.
I love I always got to bring that up when I talk about Snakes on a Plane, the edited version of Snakes on a Plane that they play on TV.
No.
Where they replace it with, I'm tired of these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane.
Yeah. It was I think they did one of those for Hot Fuzz as well, but they replaced every F word with funk. It's like,
oh, that's fucking great. Funk is
great.
So
it's hilarious. But there's a part as well where they obviously had to change other swears as well. It's for like, airlines and stuff. There's a scene, there's that part where he's the main bad guy, the chief has a hostage. I think it's his own son. And he turns around and he goes, "Pack it in, Frank, you silly bar stool," instead of bastard. And it's like fucking hilarious.
I love that. There's actually a really great Mr. Show skit where it's like Goodfellas, but it's edited for TV. And so like they keep cussing, but it's words put on top of it. And at one point, like David Cross's character is like doing this slew of cuss words, but the replacement is mother, father, Chinese dentist. And then at one point he goes to like flick him off, and the hand has been replaced with a thumbs up.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Mr. Show, I highly recommend watching all of Mr. Show just because it's fucking genius.
Hell yeah. So where was I? Where was I
I'm
with
sorry. I'm sorry.
Detonator?
I
That's
think we had
cool.
gotten to one step away, maybe. That's where it went off. Yeah, because one step away led to Rocky, led to God damn. That was a good tangent.
It was.
Yeah.
Damn.
If you get to the point where you have trouble connecting the dots, that's when you know it's a good tangent. Where you're just
Yeah.
like, wait, how did we get here? I don't know. Cool. That's awesome.
Something about traveling in time and fighting Hitler.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. That was it.
So yeah, well, Hard Time is a groovy song.
Mhm.
Heads I Win, Tails You Lose. That is a big hair riff right there. You can practically smell the fucking Aquanet coming off of it. All or Nothing is this like plodding, groovy glam metal track. Can't Wait on Love. Like this is the sort of thing. Wait on, Dad. Can't wait on.
That's one of those songs that just like starts up and you're like, yeah, where are we going with this? It's a good start.
Yeah. This song is very me. I love that chorus. And then you get Giving Yourself Away, which is probably like the most ballady ballad they ever balladed.
Yeah, it's always spoken of like it's their the only ballad they did, but honestly, for ballads, it's not really that ballady. It's a little bit. It doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't, it's not in the same vein as Every Rose Has Its Thorn for me. Like it doesn't,
yeah,
or even Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone. Those seem like real, big old ballads.
Well, there's two ways you can go with a ballad, isn't there? That you got the like somber, God damn, I miss her kind of approach, but then you've got like, we're still gonna burn the fucking house down, like, yeah, giving yourself away.
Yeah. And I guess you also have the depressing route like Kix did, which is all like a "Don't Kill Yourself" song.
Don't close your eyes. Yeah,
so that's one of my favorite 80s ballads is "Don't Close Your Eyes." Man, that's killer. Anyway, all right, yeah, we're on Ratt.
Don't kill yourself. And then like they close out the album with Top Secret. Holy shit, they saved one of the best for last. This song rocks. This album is slightly more memorable across the board than one of my later picks. I'll get into it, but I think of the two, this record is more consistent, but the album that's coming up afterwards, I think, has more standout tracks. It's kind of weird. I think they're both on an even playing field, but for different reasons. This one's good across the board, but the one above it, I'll explain when we get there.
Okay. So at this point, this is interesting or boring, depending on how you want to look at it. But Detonator is also my number 5. So we are 3 albums in a row, exactly the same
matchup.
Yeah. I really like this album, but it's the most polished and sort of almost radio ready at times. But that's because they worked with Desmond Child, who also worked with Kiss and many other artists that he came on as producer / co-songwriter. And, they needed a little shot in the arm, I guess, or felt like they needed a shot in the arm after Reach for the Sky. But, that's the thing that sucks. That I think that people, I blame music journalists and management and stuff for fucking up bands, because when a band puts out an album that just doesn't sell as well, they immediately go, well, you got to work with somebody else now. Like, no. No, that doesn't mean it's a bad album. Just this, if the public is that stupid, whatever. But anyway, so they went this route where they tried to do this album with Desmond Child. And you can tell, like, I almost feel like when I listened to some of this, that I felt like they were going for, what Metallica would eventually do. Like, I almost feel like they had this idea of like, we're going to do a Ratt album, but it's going to fucking blow up and for everyone, we're going to make it to where everybody loves this album. And maybe that was their goal. And then unfortunately it didn't really happen, and it didn't sell very well either. But I mean, it did good enough, for the time. But I just think it's a really enjoyable album. It's got a lot of really good songs. There's a little bit of, there's too much of the dirt missing from this. So that's why it ends up being here. Because it's still very much a Ratt album. It sounds like a Ratt album, and everyone sounds great on it, but it does have that, there's an element of safeness. I don't feel like I'm gonna get an STD from this album. I feel like this album is wearing a condom, still gonna pound the fuck out of me, but it's gonna wear a condom while it does it. So it's been smoothed out. I should have said it that way, right?
Ribbed for her pleasure. Yeah.
But I have to say, you know, this is the last one with Robin Crosby. Like, he doesn't play on any other albums after this. But this album included, that is a pretty damn solid 5-album run from this band. And wrapping up like the initial Ratt era. Like, this was the last thing they did for 9 years or whatever. And who knows if they'll ever do anything again. We didn't really talk about this at the end of Infestation, but like, Infestation is the kind of album that you're like, yeah, this band's back and they're going to be going places, and they fall apart over and over again.
Yeah.
And now it's back to the same shit where it's just Steven and Juan and other people. I think at one point Juan wasn't even involved. Like, he was just like, fuck this. And you fucked up if Juan is like, I'm not doing this.
I kind of wonder as well, like, didn't they at one point, didn't they do a Queensryche and there were 2 types of Ratt? Like,
there was not Robin Crosby. There was
Bobby Blotzer.
Bobby Blotz's the Blotz. He had his own Ratt which was even funnier because it's just because LA Guns has that now too, where the original LA Guns drummer has Steve Riley's LA Guns, but everyone else is not original LA Guns. And it gets to the point where the sad thing about that is that when that happens, not only do I go, I'm totally not interested in your I'm the drummer, here's a new version of the band thing, but it immediately makes me not interested in anything. Because if you guys are all 50-year-old babies and can't get your shit together, then I'm not going to give you my money, because that's the thing, is that if your egos are still that huge at this point where like sure, okay, fine, you've come around to where you're still considered rock stars, but you're not making the rock star money. But you know what? You fucking could, because I'm willing to bet if all of the OG Ratt people got back together, with Carlos from is Carlos still alive from Quiet Riot? Because I know last episode we were talking about a dead guy from Quiet Riot and I didn't even know it.
Yeah, like I was sad when I read
Carlos
that, but then I was
Cavazo. Is that his name? Carlos Cavazo?
Carlos Cavazo.
Is he alive?
He's still out here kicking it.
So here's the thing. If that lineup of the band came on tour, I would go. But now, if it's just Steven and Juan and some other dudes, even if they're really talented dudes, I'm not interested. I was like, at this point, especially in a pandemic, you need to give me a fucking reason to leave the house. And if Warren DeMartini is not there, I'm probably not going to go. Not worth getting COVID. I'll get COVID for Warren. That's about it. Anyway,
that's devotion to the cause right there.
Yeah, it just makes it a really sad thing, because I'm all like, because you never know who the actual asshole is, because everyone's calling somebody else an asshole, and I'm just like, look, you're all assholes. Everybody just accept it and get back together for the fans, because we're the ones keeping you here. So.
The thing for me is like, whenever I see these big bands fall apart, I'm like, you're living my fucking dream. How did you fuck this up? Like,
I mean, you haven't gotten to that point yet because you're still in your 20s, but like, I've gone through that whole point in my life where I go, oh, it's never going to happen for me. And so we'll get there at about, if it doesn't happen for you, which I think it will, 35, if you haven't gotten there by 35 at this point, you still keep trying. I'm not telling anybody to give up. Don't give up.
Give up, fucker.
But you do reach that point where you're just like, all right, well, the dream I had since I was like 15 years old is not going to happen. And you're right. I look at bands like Ratt and I go, fuck you. You had everything, and you still have the ability to keep everything going. And maybe they need like a therapist like Metallica had to come in. They ain't got that kind of money though. They don't got the millions to throw away on a therapist.
Or Ratt, hire me. I will drum for you.
Yeah, yeah.
And we'll sneak our way into the lineup, and then what we'll do is we'll splinter off and we'll start Cranked and Ranked Ratt.
We're gonna be like two dudes that just kind of know the band, but we're gonna start our own version of Ratt. And then that would be the really funny thing. Randos that have nothing to do with the band start their own version of the band, and they're just like, well, you know what? If they're not going to take it seriously, we're going to do it right. That'd be pretty cool. I could probably sing a lot of Stephen Pearcy's stuff, probably better than Stephen can at this point. But I'm sorry, Stephen. I mean, but he's not the greatest vocalist in the world, and he hasn't gotten any better.
Stephen versus Stephen. Is Stephen Pearcy okay? Here is the big tell. Is he a V or a PH Stephen?
He is a PH.
He's a Stephen Pearcy. Oh, it's on. It's fucking.
So honestly, my name is more metal than his because it's Stephen with a V right in there, because that's where I'm going to be, down in the V after shows. The P and the V,
the P and the V.
But yeah, so no, he's Stephen Pearcy. I just remember I went to a show in Houston actually before I lived here, and the show was the opening band was Bullet Boys, and then after them was Faster Pussycat, after them was LA Guns, and then the headlining was not Ratt but Stephen Pearcy.
That's a sleaze lineup right there.
It was so much fun, but Stephen Pearcy's band and performance was a letdown because they seemed so not really into it that I ended up leaving halfway through, because I had already been like between Faster Pussycat and LA Guns, I'm all like, fuck man, this is awesome. And then Stephen Pearcy came out and he just seemed so like there to get a paycheck, and the band were just like hired guns, and so I wasn't into it. But
wasn't there a thing like, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago, where Stephen Pearcy got like arrested on stage, but it turned out to be a PR stunt?
Oh, I don't remember. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's a great PR stunt if it is, man.
Thing is, like, it depends when it happened in the set, because if I paid for tickets to see Ratt and I saw like 2 songs and then he got arrested, I'd be pissed. If it happened like 8 in, okay. Here's
the thing though. If he legit got arrested, that's worth way more than seeing an entire set. Because because then you that's why I think it's so funny when people like go to a show where something goes wrong and they go, I want my money back. And I'm like, no, because now you have a story. Because either your story was, I went to go see this band, they played their songs, everything was fine. But now you have this fucking shit happened at this show. Your experience is now worth a lot more. But if it is the sort of thing where you're like, 2 songs in, the cops came and arrested Stephen Pearcy, and then you find out that it was a hoax, then I would be like, not only are you going to give me my money back, you owe me double. Give me my gas money back, like drink money, everything refunded to me.
Man.
Have we gotten? I don't even know where we were.
I think we were talking about Detonator. Still.
Okay. Oh yeah, because I was talking about the drama of Ratt.
Yes.
And but yeah, Detonator is back. I mean, I'm sure there was already drama, but at least this was the last of their original run, and it's a great album. It's just not as good as the other 4 we're going to talk about. So let's move on to number 4.
Let's go. So my number 4 is Dancing Undercover.
Cool. All right.
And my reason for this is it is 50% Killer, 50% filler. And what
Okay.
what I mean by that, I put Detonator beneath this because it's consistently good all the way through with a few peaks here and there.
Got it.
The highs on this album are fucking high,
Mm-hmm.
but the kind of valleys between the peaks are pretty deep. So, without further ado, I'm gonna jump into it.
Okay.
We got Dance is this fun melodic rocker. It's a good energetic opener, good way to open the album. One Good Lover is a pretty good hair metal song. It doesn't stand out much, but it does have a good bridge section that really elevates into the last
there is an important
chorus.
thing at this point that I feel like you're missing from this album, but I'll get to it when I talk about it, because like you're talking about these songs, I'm all like, there's something important that you're missing about this.
Okay, I will hold off on
Okay.
that because I feel like it's right under my nose, but I've completely forgotten. Drive Me Crazy is an up tempo driving rocker. I really like the harmonies on the chorus and that like ultra fun caveman Phil post chorus part with the drive me crazy, drive me crazy. Like
Yep.
it's when they do like our hair's really teased up and we're wearing like skin tight lace, but we're still men. Like they'll do those like little things every now and again. You got Slip of the Lip is some stripper riffage, always in the mood for that. Body Talk is borderline speed metal. Like
Yeah.
songs like this, songs like Body Talk are why these bands deserve more respect than they get.
Yeah.
Looking for Love is another pretty rockin' but still very melodic 80s metal track. Then you get to Seventh Avenue, and this is where the memorability of the tracks on this album takes a bit of a nosedive, because songs like this, like, they aren't bad, but they don't really stand out with a big chorus like they would on like the first couple albums. It Doesn't Matter is kind of paint by numbers. Take a Chance. There is a cheekiness to that riff at least, but I feel like this B-side of this album is like the cool down phase of a workout. Like there's nothing big around the corner. It's just a little bit pedestrian. Enough is enough. Like this album is half banger and half background 80s house party movie music scene.
Yeah.
You know? It has some of the best 80s Ratt songs and some of the most forgettable. And so that is why Dancing Undercover is number 4. And you are probably going to tell me something I used to know that I forgot for some reason.
It's not going to it probably won't totally change your mind on the album, but I'm not going to get there yet because that is not my number 4.
Okay.
This is my first controversial placement. Now,
shit.
Before I start this, I'm going to have to say that well, I guess we got into Banger Central a while ago, but these 4 albums to me, like
the Love Zone,
ordering these it doesn't matter. I mean, I had to be real picky with stuff because I love all 4 of these albums, but this will be this is an album that sometimes is somebody's number 1. I've seen a lot of people say this is their number 1, but it's my number 4. Invasion of Your Privacy from 1985 is my number 4.
Wow.
Now this being said, I have the same thing to say that you did about Dancing Undercover, because Invasion of Your Privacy has fucking Lay It Down on it, which is one of my favorite Ratt songs. But that riff is one of those, it's one of those riffs that's so cool that I have forced myself over the years to not learn how to play it, because I don't want to find out that it's like super easy, because it just sounds so awesome that I'm just like, no, I'm leaving that to Warren to just play this fucking amazing riff, because I love the way it sounds.
From what I remember, it's a real finger stretcher. You're like, does my pinky even fucking go that far? Like, I haven't played
good
it
to know.
years.
I probably couldn't play it anyway. Not even gonna try. But so right. So it's got great songs on it. Don't get me wrong, but this ends up being number 4 because there's a little bit of it that just feels like Out of the Cellar Part 2, and the production is not as good as Out of the Cellar, and overall, all of the songs are not as good as all of the songs on like ratio wise. Out of the Cellar has more good songs than Invasion of Your Privacy, in my opinion. And funny enough, like it loses a little bit of the energy from Out of the Cellar. Like I went in and listened to these straight through, album 1 all the way to 7. And going into this album, Out of the Cellar, sure, it's got great songs, but there's a little bit of the energy that's missing from this album. So it makes it a second album that doesn't deliver the way I love second albums to deliver, because it's not them breaking any new ground. It's them just continuing what they were already doing. But there's a little bit of the hunger gone. They're already popular now, and now they're just making Ratt. So it's still great. It's a great album, but it really, if I'm having to take albums and go, did this give me something at least? Because like when you're talking about these first 4 or 5 albums, the differences in them are so minor, that it gets really hard. That's what she said. But minor
and that's what she said should not be in the same sentence.
That's true. That's true. But I love this album. It's got a lot of classics on it, but overall as an album, I feel like it's not the step forward that you would want out of a second album from a band, especially after Out of the Cellar. So it had to go here at number 4, Invasion of Your Privacy, of your private parts. That's what they wanted to call it.
Yeah. Totally.
Although that sounds rude. You don't want to do that kind of invasion. If you have to refer to sex as an invasion, then you're probably gonna go to jail.
You're probably a fucking creep.
Yeah. I'm waiting for your Shaba.
Sexual chocolate.
Or that, whatever. It doesn't have to always be Shaba. It can sometimes be.
It sounds so lovely, don't you agree?
Yeah, good and terrible.
He's good. That boy's good.
All right.
What's that line he said? You know him from that episode of That's My Mama. Oh, that's brilliant. Okay. Number 3. My number 3.
Number 3, Ratt album from Eddie Sparxx.
Cool. Let's fucking go. My number 3 is Reach for the Sky.
Okay. Cool.
And it is what I would consider also somewhat of a controversial placing from my research, because very few lists have this high up, and
which is it's ridiculous, but whatever.
I don't get it. I simply don't get it.
It's some of it is part of that thing that I always complain about, where enough interviews with bands and journalists and stuff over the years have informed people's opinion to where they just look at an album and go, oh, this one's supposed to be a bad one.
It's a circle jerk. That is an
is.
absolute circle jerk. They told me I'm supposed to hate this, so it's my personality now. Yeah.
That was a good character, whatever that was.
I've been working on him. He's a disgruntled but hardworking elitist.
But he's an old man too.
But he's at least mid-50s. He's like, I remember when CDs were 8 tracks.
That makes sense, because it does seem like it's usually older people that are all just like, look, I saw an interview and they said it was a bad album. I don't know why you would like this album.
I tell you what, Rip Magazine, November 1988.
I wonder if I have that one.
You very well might.
I don't think Rip was around in 88. I think it might have started in 89. One of those things. It might have been 88.
Right on.
Rip magazine also published by the same publisher as Hustler magazine. Just,
they made some good shit in the 80s, dude.
What was that? What was that guy's name? Larry Flint. Larry Flint did
Larry Flint
published Rip magazine.
Nice.
I mean, just sorry, tidbit for those of you who were curious.
Or a titbit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Cool. So reach for the sky.
Yep.
Reach for the tits. City. So first track, Titty to Titty.
We're just gonna call them by their original titles before they change them for the record company.
Some of them you don't even have to change. But yeah, City to City. The chorus on this one is a really good sign. They keep this quality up throughout the record. I think this is kind of a return to form a little bit after something of a memorability slump with Dancing Undercover, in my opinion. I Want a Woman, and now here is an 80s track containing the words little girl that managed to dodge being creepy, because he's straight up saying he wants a woman, not a little girl.
Yeah. That's 100%. It was one of my favorite Ratt songs, and I absolutely agree.
A woman.
Because that's
some little girl.
Because that's the thing that I've complained about for years, not just with rock and rollers, but with movie stars, celebrities in general. I'm all like, why would you want a girl who's a little girl that has no clue what she's doing? Like that is not attractive to me at all, and even never even has been really. Like I've just been, I've never had that point in me that's like, oh, you just turned 18. That's hot. I just think in my head, oh, you just turned 18. Give yourself another 5 years so you're not a fucking moron, and then I'll start dating you. Anyway.
Where was I? Where was I?
So anyway, point is, I agree with their song.
Yeah. Then you get Way Cool Jr., which is one of... That was good. That was a good one.
It's a good little, if you feel it.
One of my top 5 Ratt songs ever. Way Cool Jr.
Way Cool Jr. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know
if I'd put it at the top, but it's definitely a fun song.
I like it because it's so different. Like there's nothing else in
It's got horns in it.
Yeah. Like this is a quintessential piece of late 80s rock. It's got the blues feel and it's got horns in it.
Yeah.
Then you get Don't Bite the Hand That Feeds You. Like fun chorus.
Another totally overused song title.
Yeah. Kick-ass riffage in it, though. I can't fault it for that. I Want to Love You. You've entered the semi-ballad zone here, and I say semi-ballad because when it rocks, it goes hard, even though it does have
it's anthemic.
It is anthemic.
Love you. Like it is not. It's not. It is like I'm gonna go out and get that kind of song.
Yeah. Even though it does have the little soft portions that are like they're the audio foreplay, so to speak.
They know how to do it. At this point, album number 4, they're seasoned at having ear sex with you.
Yeah. It's like that line from Tenacious D, and they came, they saw, and they conquered, and now they've came to come in your ear pussies or something like that. I haven't seen that film in years. I'll have to watch that later.
It's a great movie.
It is. Pick of Destiny for those who don't know.
Pick of Destiny. So I saw it in the movie theater and left that thing going, this thing's going to be huge. And it wasn't. I was like, why wouldn't everyone in the world want to see this movie? But apparently they didn't.
Man, like it's moments like that make me sad that people suck so hard,
I mean, that is might as well end the show right there.
Yeah.
That's what's wrong. That's what's wrong with the world, is that so many people suck so hard. It's just that's the problem.
Yeah, man. Like if there was a god, Chain Reaction would have been a hit. You know?
I like that's a fun song.
Yeah. Which brings me to Chain Reaction. Fuck yeah.
Mhm.
Mid-tempo double kick. That shit is one of many heavy metal keys to my heart, and that fucking chorus, like Ratt is back.
Mhm.
Like they didn't go away, but they're like Ratt is back again for a round
Rat is
4.
still here.
Yeah.
Rat went nowhere.
Yeah, and then throw in a Stephen Piercy there. uh, no surprise, all those fucking harmonies in that in those vocal parts. I
Mhm.
love the way they open it too. It's like, why live your why live
Yeah,
your
yeah.
it's like, whoa, what's happening?
Studio magic.
Yeah. What's it gonna be is a real catchy one, quite sugary sweet, but still fits perfectly in this kind of glam metal record.
Yeah.
What I'm After is a great closing track, has that end credits vibe, rocking and happy sounding. Like, this is a good time record.
Mhm.
The choruses are what I love rap for, and it's full display on this album. And I love it so. I love it
I
so much.
I love it too, so much so that it is not even my number three.
Ooh,
My number three is Dancing Undercover from 1986,
okay.
which was, you could say, is my intro to Rat, because that's where that Body Talk is on this album. So
Nice.
going in order through the albums, all of a sudden, album number three, Dancing Undercover, out of the first three, has the best production. It's the best sound of those three albums. First off. Secondly, the thing that I think that you may have missed, or maybe it just didn't really, it wasn't good enough to really like make the album any better for you. If you listen to Stephen Piercy's vocals on the first two albums and then you listen to Dancing Undercover, he's gotten way better at singing, and he now writes way more interesting melodies. So a lot of these
Yeah.
songs, you'll hear him, I'm like, oh, he's doing way more with the vocals than he did before. And so that's a big standout for me on this album, that it really does seem like he's like, look, I'm going to do as much as I'm capable of doing. And it's great because, like, it's, from this point on in this album, I would say all the way through to Detonator, vocally, like, he is the best that he ever would be, with not just performances, but also just a range of melodies, which is kind of missing on the first two albums. They're there, but they're just not as I guess interesting. I guess I don't know. But Dancing Undercover to me is a really fun and energetic album with a lot of great songs, and I really feel at this point like it's to me it's better than Invasion of Your Privacy, because I feel like they've now at this point kind of perfected the Rat thing. Like they're doing the Rat thing as, it's all come together now, and they're I don't know, I feel this album to me just has an energy of a band that's just has such a momentum going for them. But I feel like they took more chances songwriting wise on this album, which you could say maybe some of the songs don't have that immediate anthemic kind of quality that maybe some of their other songs do. But I just think it's a really solid album. And this one and Reach for the Sky to me are both albums that I think some people complain that they're not really that good. And I'm just like, I don't know what albums you're listening to or what you're wanting out of your albums necessarily, because there's no bad songs on any of these albums to me. But I really do like the fact that it feels like in the trajectory of their first three, this one feels like, like I said, their steps forward and up are very tiny, but this one is one. Like it goes up to another level of Rat.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's my number three, Dancing Undercover.
Cool. So now we have reached
Top
the
two.
top two, the number 2 spot. So now here is where I think our biggest difference in our ranking is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 2 is Out of the Cellar.
Wow. Okay.
See, I have seen this in pretty much first place everywhere I've looked, you know.
Yeah.
But there is a quality to. I mean, it's no secret that Invasion of Your Privacy is going to be the one above this for me. I haven't mentioned it yet, but to me, this one, if you want, you know, Rat doing kind of the most heavy metal version of what their sound is,
Yeah.
you're gonna get it on this one. Like, this is like, it sounds weird to call Rat pissed off, but like, if any version of Rat is gonna beat you up, this is the album I don't want to pick a fight with.
Yeah.
Because it has really, like, you know, almost, it's got sort of this dark aura around it that's really cool. So I'll go into it. You know, Wanted Man. You know, I actually realized years later that the first time I heard this was like briefly for a few seconds in the movie Weird Science, and it's one of my favorite childhood 80s movies. I think there's like that
isn't
exterior
isn't it
shot
when
of the house.
she opens the door to the party or whatever? Or is it?
It's like, it's crazy brief. Like, I only just realized this the other day when I was watching it.
I remember it in the movie, but I don't. Oh no, it's when they leave Anthony Michael Hall's parents' house.
Yeah,
she pulls the gun on the dad. And then all of a sudden he doesn't remember who he is.
That's an awesome fucking movie.
Who's Gary?
Who's Gary? Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, she's still like, our son Gary. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, and I want you to shut up.
Yeah. God, that was one of my earliest 80s movies too. Like,
it's one of my favorites movie. Because why does it even exist? Like, it doesn't. It's one of those movies that could only be made by a writer director that had so much success that the movie company just gave him, like, do whatever you want. It's like, all right, you asked for it. They're gonna make a woman out of a computer at some point. The brother's gonna be turned into like a Jabba the Hutt type kind of thing. And I mean, it's,
sorry for being such a shit to you all these years.
Oh, Bill Paxton, rest in peace, man. He fucking rules in that movie. Yeah. Everybody, I mean, like, it's a great movie, but it's also like a really bad movie because, like, some of the acting in it's pretty shitty, but
it's too fun to care. Like, it's
the line from that movie that's kind of a throwaway line that I always randomly say is the one point they walk into the kitchen and Anthony Michael Hall goes, Wyatt, the kitchen is blue. That's the point. That's the point where the fucking grandparents are like put in the closet, and she's like, they're fine. In fact, they're better than fine. They're not aging anymore.
I love the which one is it? Like, right at the beginning where they're like designing her, and he says they're like discussing bust size, and like, he's like, anything more than a handful, you're risking a sprained thumb. And it's just that part, like, the weighing up the logistics of it.
And just like that idea, like back in the day, the way that people looked at computers, it was like, oh, we've reached a restricted area. Boom,
override. Yeah. It's so funny. Like, any 80s hacking scene, all you need is a can of Pepsi on the side and to just type override every time there's a password.
Yeah. And there's so many instances in that movie where like even that part of the movie, like, once they've like connected the phone to the modem and like all of a sudden everything starts going crazy, and then there's all of a sudden a dog on the ceiling. I'm like, well, why did they literally had to go and film that one shot for 2 seconds of a dog on a ceiling, and John Hughes is just like, it needs to be in there. Like, nobody is going to know how crazy things are going unless there's a dog on the ceiling.
Can I admit a deep dark secret on this show?
Okay.
Like, the very first time, right, I was 8. I didn't know anything, right? Mm-hmm. But I was like, I saw, the part where the girl gets like dragged off of the piano by like nothing, and she's like sliding across the floor. I remember the first time as a kid, I was like, can you see up her skirt? And I was there like, and there's that like slow down function.
Oh,
I didn't
dude.
I didn't even know what
I grew up with slow mo.
Like, here's the thing, right? I was 8 years old. I barely even knew what fucking sex was, and here I am now. I'm just curious. This is kind of innocent, to be honest, because I'm there. I'm like, I want to find out what's up there, and I'm just watching this in slow mo. And my mum walks into the room. She said, "Why are you watching Weird Science at like 0.2 speed?" I was like, "Shut up."
That says a lot.
I'm doing important research.
That says a lot about your relationship with your mom, that you didn't immediately turn it off and be like, "I wasn't doing anything," because that would have been my reaction.
I didn't know at the time that wasn't appropriate.
The thing that I think is so great about that particular scene in the movie is that it's somehow an entire couch fits up the chimney.
Yeah, and shoots out of it. Yeah.
That's literally one of the most ridiculous movies ever made, and that's why I love it so much, because it comes from a guy that was doing all these coming of age teen movies and is mostly known for that. But then he makes this movie that by all accounts, the studio should have said, "We're not fucking doing this." Yeah,
love it.
That's an absolute 80s classic for me. So yeah,
truly is.
Weird Science. Everybody, go watch it if you haven't already.
if you haven't, it is an absolute sin if you haven't.
I agree.
Yeah. So Wanted Man. Okay.
So Wanted Man. It's in Weird Science.
It's a great song. I love and from the road you will hang. Yeah, I fucking love that. You're in Trouble. Great rocking song.
Every time somebody says that, to me it sounds like you're in trouble. Like you're having trouble peeing. You're in trouble.
Fun fact, this was inspired by a kidney stone.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe one of them's drinking way too much soda, and then they, all of a sudden they've had You're in Trouble. And they're like, no, we can't sing about that. Let's just call it You're in Trouble. Oh, okay.
It's like one of those like behind the scenes, like behind the music sort of things. Yeah, by our second tour, Robin was just pissing left and right.
Or it could be an STD thing. You're in trouble. It burns when I pee. I'm having urine trouble. It's what you're going through.
Or not going through.
Or no,
or if you got a blockage down there.
One of those.
Oh man. We gotta get off these tangents, because we're just going round and round.
Oh,
whoa!
That was good. Round and round. There's a great point that Kevin Smith once made about Round and Round. I don't remember if it was on a podcast or what, but he talks about how, I love the song Round and Round, but you listen to the chorus of the song and he's like, what goes around comes around. I'll tell you why, and then he doesn't really tell you why. Yeah. None of the lyrics are really telling you why. It's big, because that's Stephen Piercy's style. Like he even said, like in an interview, that he's all about the vibe of the words, even if they don't really make any sense. And I'm like, all right, good on you. That's you made a classic song, but you never told us why. Okay.
Stephen Piercy's approach to vocals is sex and shit. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty much. I mean, to be honest, that could probably be said for every glam frontman.
Or anybody in a rock band in the 80s. I don't care. I don't care who you were. I'm pretty sure Slayer was even driven by sex too. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Although we're into succubuses,
that's when it gets
I'm gonna lay you down by the fire. Like, can you imagine a fucking Slayer love ballad?
Why has there not been like a death metal band that all their lyrics are like love song lyrics? That seems like it should already be out there. So
yeah,
just saying, people.
Do it, and then do it to it.
That would be
But,
that'd be some intense sex right there.
yeah. just like blast beats. Like every song like is in excess of at least 200 BPM. That'd be hilarious. But yeah, in your direction is serious 80s mid-tempo riffing.
Yeah.
She Wants Money is a speed breaker, you know, great shout along chorus. Lack of communication, lack of communication, lack of lack of, like, that's such a cool part to a song, you know. And
Yeah.
you know, people say like the cardinal sin of writing music is the vocals copy the riff. Like Sabbath made an entire genre out of that. Like,
yeah, I think that that's an argument that only holds water half of the time. I think there are examples where it seems lazy, and then there are other examples where I wouldn't write the vocal line any other way. So, yeah,
exactly. Hell, most metal bands these days just go over the top of stuff anyway. So melody is kind of second.
Yeah.
I just had a mad boomer take right there.
That was very not 23-year-old,
not my age
guy.
group.
Yeah. Speaking of that, when is your birthday?
6th of May. So that is
so you'll turn 24 after I turn 44. I'm 44 in March.
So there'll be a like brief 2-month period where we're not exactly 20 years apart.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be special. It'll be like daylight savings time or leap year. It'll be the leap year.
It's funny actually. Isn't that around the time of daylight savings as well? Like
I think March is when it happens, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah, something like that.
That was a very boring tangent, folks. We did better ones earlier. This was just like, when's your birthday? All right, cool. My birthday.
Wait, one sec.
What?
There we go.
I was wondering when you were going to do that. He laid out an entire line of cocaine at the beginning of the show before we even started, and I'm like, is he ever going to do it?
It was a reserve. It was a reserve, people. We're back in action. We're back in fucking action.
Me, I'm just on shrooms over here. I'm not even. I want another plane. I don't need to do any kind of drugs like that.
We're on a completely different fucking radar screen, man. We're fucking ready to keep going. It's not a fucking 80s Wall Street stockbroker way too hyped up moment there. Yeah, sell, buy. Right. Let's get back. Let's get back on track here.
Yes, I don't even know where we were.
The coke is setting in now. Back for more. Love it. Awesome. Awesome fucking song.
Yeah. That's a great
You're
song.
Back for more. What does this become? It's just us singing Ratt lyrics and making coke jokes. Funny actually, the morning after, shuffly up tempo one, that drum beat is like Detroit Rock City on 80s levels of coke. I've literally written that in the notes. Yeah, I mean, this is a kick-ass album, dude. And here's the thing, one of my favorite songs on it, I have heard some people call it the worst song on the album, is I'm Insane. I fucking love I'm Insane. Like, some people called it a stinker. I'm like, dude, this was like borderline speed metal. The fuck are these people talking about? It's, you know, one of my favorite Ratt songs. This one is a track I have broken many speed limits to, I must admit. Not to, you know, out myself. Don't arrest me for that. Scene of the Crime.
I don't have jurisdiction over here, so
it seems appropriate that the next song is called "Scene of the Crime." Like, there's There's actually a real crime vibe to this album, isn't there? Wanted man, you're in trouble, scene of the crime. Like, jokes aside, if hair metal was cocaine, which it pretty much is, then this is pure grade A Colombian, my friend.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's a great 80s record, and it's an essential for any glam metal collection. Fuck it, any 80s record collection should have this.
Yeah, pretty damn great album.
Hell yeah.
So much so that it's not my number 2. My number 2 is Reach for the Sky from 1988.
Hey,
an album
I'm happy to see it high up.
An album that does not get enough love. I really feel like I don't. If you're a Ratt fan and you don't like this album, I feel like I'm questioning your taste in music overall. Because this is, in my opinion, sonically the best sounding Ratt album, which is interesting because originally it was being produced by this guy Mike Stone, and then the record company didn't like the way that it sounded, so they brought Beau Hill back. Beau Hill did the other 3 albums prior, and I don't know what the combination is that made this sound so great, but I just love the way the album sounds because it has a really big full sound. Everything just sounds really great. I don't really know, but it worked out. But it has "I Want a Woman" on it, which is one of my favorite Ratt songs. And this is once again another tiny step up for Ratt, where they're still doing Ratt, just with these little minor tweaks. And so that's why this one is ends up being my number 2, because for their 80s output, for me, they were just churning out awesome shit. This is like the pinnacle of them. Like, they're at their biggest rock stardom, money for, coming their way for albums. They had great production. But the songwriting, to me, it just sounds like they don't sound like they're phoning it in on this album to me at all. Like, I think there's so many great songs on this album, and it's a lot of fun. And there's a lot of memorable parts of the songs. I don't really get the hate for it. The only thing I can relate it to is that whenever a band comes out in an interview and says it's not a good album, everyone just follows in. And so, oh yeah, it's not a good album. But I think the only reason they even thought that was because it just didn't sell as well as their previous 3 albums.
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with the quality of the album. Like, this album should have been, I mean, it still was fairly big at the time. It just wasn't as big, I guess, as they wanted it to be. Maybe part of it is the fucking artwork, which is my favorite Ratt album cover, because it looks like it belongs.
Strange, yeah.
It looks like it belongs on a prog album and not on a Ratt album, because it's such a what the fuck album cover. I don't even know what's going on the album cover. There's a statue and is it like a hand in some sort of frilly sleeve? And I don't know. It's one of those that, like, I look at it and every time I go, I don't really know like what's going on here.
I'm gonna have a quick look at it.
I'll throw it up on the video for the people on YouTube, and then you take a look at it. Look at it. What's going on in this thing, and what does it mean? What does it all mean?
This totally could be like, if you took the Ratt logo off of it and replaced it with Rush. This would be it. Honestly, it's got mad Rush vibes.
It's a proggy kind of thing, which is funny because this album is very not proggy. Nothing proggy about this album.
It's got like one time signature the whole way through.
Yeah. I love it.
How very unprog.
Because I honestly, I love the album covers that are memorable for whatever reason. Whether it being like in a really amazing painting or some sort of iconic image of the band, or an album cover where you go, what? Like, those are my favorite album covers. But yeah, I just think this is a great album. Very well done. And I go back to this album. Honestly, like, this might be my favorite Ratt album, just a personal favorite. But in ranking them, this ended up being number 2. Because my number 1, which clearly it's Out of the Cellar, is a fucking killer. But before we get to that, we get to the number 1 Ratt album of Mr. Eddie Sparxx, and we figured out that it's It's the one I put at number 4. So
it is.
There you go.
So my number 1 is Invasion of Your Privacy, and my sole reasoning for its placing is it is chorus central. Like a solid 80-90% of this album is choruses. You know, You're in Love. It's impossible to not have a good time to this song. Absolutely kick-ass way to open an album, and I especially love that fill at the end that Bobby Blotzer does, where it's like like I remember when I first heard that, I was like, oh, that is tasty.
Yeah,
me like it. And then this is a very hair metal move. Never Use Love. That's 2 songs in a row that have love in the title. And it's also the second song in a row to have an absolute fucking killer riff in it. Like, I remember hearing You're in Love and then Never Use Love and then Lay It Down.
Once again, you said You're in Love, and I was like, oh, now they love it.
Yeah,
they love that urine.
Yeah. I mean,
You're in love. You'll never hear these songs the same way again. You're in trouble. You're in love.
I'm trying to think, like, going back to that behind the music sort of thing. We actually, for some strange reason, the audience really began to love Robin Crosby just pissing everywhere. So we wrote a song about you're in love. Yeah. It's no longer You're in Trouble, it's You're in Love. Lay It Down, though. It's just such an immortal fucking song. Like, the solo that is
a riff. Like, that's got this, it's similar in key and everything to like Unchained by Van Halen. Is that what I'm thinking of?
Yeah.
Like, there's got that thing where there's certain riffs that start by themselves at the beginning of a song, and you just go, oh yeah. And that definitely has it.
Every single time this song ever comes on, I'm like, volume knob, crank that shit up. I like, and funny as well, like, people always talk about how, grunge really brought drop D tuning to the forefront. This song's in fucking drop D. Like,
oh, is it?
Yeah, like, for some reason, like, Warren DeMartini was really into drop D. I think Lay It Down, if it's not Lay It Down, then it's You're in Love. I think there is quite a bit of drop D in Ratt's stuff.
I think I'm gonna finally get over myself and go and try to learn the riff from Lay It Down and see if it is in D.
Do it. I found a way to play it, but it's kind of the pussy way to play it. Like, like, there's one finger down here that I just thought, fuck you, I don't need that. But
honestly, now that I'm at a point in my life where it's like I'm not in bands anymore, I just do music on my own. But I'm still there's that part of me that goes, you know what? If I could get like Warren DeMartini to give me some lessons, I would be down for that. Just getting a little bit better at what I do, because I'm, Kurt Cobain level guitar over here. So.
I mean, Kurt wrote some of the most enduring rock anthems of all time.
I mean, yeah, that's true. But, people like to point out that he's a shitty guitar player, but, I'm like, I am too. So I'm right there with him.
You guys heard it on a podcast about a hair metal band that Kurt Cobain was a talented guy.
Yeah, here you go. It wasn't his fault that hair metal had to end. It was their fault. It was the hair band's faults, because they were putting out albums that were not great.
Did I ever send you that Eric Andre meme where he clearly shoots Hannibal on camera and then turns back to the camera and goes, who did this? And it's literally just what is it, Glam shot Glam, and it's like, why would grunge do this?
Yeah.
It's like it killed itself. But whoa, trigger warning. But yeah.
It was the record. It was the record companies, really, because everything became oversaturated with sound-alike bands who didn't do as good The songwriting wasn't as good. They weren't, because like, as much as I love like that era, I love it so much that even the also ran bands are still pretty cool. But I think once you got to like Pretty Boy Floyd, I think everyone was kind of like, what? Don't we already have 3 of these? Come on.
Yeah. But then right after Lay It Down, you get Give It All. I wanna give you all my love tonight. Give it all. Like, yeah. Like 4 straight up bangers in a row. Now here is where I will admit there is a bit of a lull in the middle of the album, because you get Closer to My Heart, which is kind of ballady.
That's one of my favorites.
See, this is where the show gets real interesting, because like to me, Closer to My Heart never really struck me the way as like some of the rest of the bombastic songs on here kind of jump out.
I like it because I just like it when the band adds a variety to what they're doing, and that song it has its own vibe on the album, which I love.
And in a lot of other album situations, I would be inclined to agree, but this one is kind of how I feel about Girls, Girls, Girls by Motley Crue. It is a fucking party from start to finish, with the exclusion of obviously the ballad on the end of it. I've forgotten its name, but You're All I Need, that's it. But
and Nona.
Nona. This is where I was gonna go. I'm not saying that Nona is anywhere as good as an actual complete song, but there is a certain there's a derailment slightly of the party going on, and I'm kind of like, come on, I want to get to Got Me on the Line.
I don't know honestly, like just from because like so to give you a little bit of my personal life. So like when how many years ago? 6 or 7 years ago, I went through a point where I went from being, in a relationship with my daughter's mom to all of a sudden being split up, living with my daughter in a really tiny apartment, where like all of a sudden my life became way more complicated, and I was, pretty alone. Although my daughter, like, she was 3 at the time, and she was amazing. Like, she's the reason why everything ended up being great. But all of a sudden there were these periods of time where my daughter was with her mom and I was just in this tiny apartment by myself. And so I did a whole lot of music listening and drinking. A lot.
Yeah.
Too much. But the one thing that I know is that like I dove into these bands because they made me happy. So like 80s Kiss and like Ratt, Cinderella, Motley Crue, all that shit. I listened to a lot of it because it's the equal parts of like, it gives you, it's a good time. It's like, it's always a rocking good time. But for some reason, like I remember being like drunk listening to like this album. And when Closer to My Heart comes on, I was just like, fuck yeah. Like, I don't know what it is about it, that it's a love song, but it has like a real sort of like dirty sort of like drive to it that like I just loved. And so like you're talking about like partying and listening to this music, and then for some reason it was exactly where it needed to be in the album, where I'm just like, yeah. But then of course, like you said, you come out of it into the next track, and then it's like now you're back into like rockin' zone. It's almost like you get a little bit of a moment to reflect and be like, yeah, and then you're right back into it. So that's coming from a drunk person telling you that song is it's very good.
It's a time to step back and ask myself, why am I partying right now? This next one's called Lick My Love Pump.
Let me tell you, but the reality of it, there's nothing more depressing than getting really drunk by yourself. Like that's I mean, luckily I don't have to do that anymore, but it's
can I be honest, it's the only thing that's kept me any semblance of sane since the pandemic began.
Okay, well, let's now, pandemic aside, now it makes more sense. But back in the day, I suppose,
like, back then,
that was literally, you're looking at a dude that I could have gone out partying, but I'm just like, nah, I'm just gonna stay here, drink, listen to music. And that's what I would do. That I was not
Fair.
even before the pandemic. I was not interested in being around people. So it gives you a little glimpse into my personality.
Oh man, like honestly though, you get where are we at? Between the Eyes. It's a cool track, but the middle two tracks of this record are probably my least favorite because they are. And I don't want to say it's because they're different, because I am a strong believer in variety is the spice of life, but there is just a certain drive to every other song around.
You're right, but I mean,
this
I guess
midsection.
Because Between the Eyes has more of like a kind of a swagger kind of groove to it. It's not very driving.
Yeah, but then you get It's So Easy to Forget.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. What you give is what you get. Like, oh, I love this song. I love that chorus. Fuck yeah. Like, that's like that fucking fist on whatever wall is in front of me that 80s kids seem to fucking do all the time in videos. We're gonna knock down the fucking door.
Off to the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Got Me on the Line is great fun. Keeps the party vibe going again. You should know by now. You should know by now. You should know by now.
All right, so let me stop you there. That's one of the big reasons why this album's so low, is because of choruses like that are so lazy. He couldn't write a second line to that chorus. Because you know it's him, and he's like got his notepad and he's like, you should know by now. And then he sits there for like another like 5 or 10 minutes going, all right, whatever. You should know by now.
But then on the flip side of it, it's like, dude, I've got a blowjob at like 3. Can we speed this up?
He was probably having one right there while he was writing it. I'm sure that he doesn't have to take time off for that. It's like, it's all part of the songwriting process.
It's like, do you want a blowjob? You should know by now. Oh, I need to write that down.
And there you go. That's how the song was born. You should know by now. You should just be living down there. Because I'm Stephen Piercy.
That's the brackets on the end of it. Yeah. You should know by now. You should be living down there, right?
Yeah.
And then Dangerous but Worth the Risk. Fun closer. This is the total attitude of hair metal. Risk. Straight up. Like, you might get AIDS. You might die. You might end up in jail for something unsavory. But hey ho, you fucking lived.
Yes.
Like, that's pretty much the approach of these bands, really. But this is a very chorus centric album, and I love it for that very reason. And yes, if you would like to proceed with your number one,
my number one, the first full length album
Control
from Ratt. We have assumed control. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna say that line just for people to know that like that's something that's coming. Just for those of you who caught that line. Out of the cellar, the first Ratt full length is my number one. The number one reason, well, there's two reasons. One, this album is fucking killer all the way through. Number two, they fully had their sound already put together. They already sounded like Ratt album one. Like you compare it to other things of the time, like sure, it's got some similarities, but they had their own sound for the bands that were happening. They didn't sound to me like Quiet Riot or Motley Crue. They had elements
very confident sounding debut.
Yeah.
Very.
And it's filled with riffs like that. That's the one thing, is that like people that I almost feel like because of albums like Out of the Cellar, Ratt became one of those bands that the metalheads didn't hate on quite as much, because have you heard the fucking riffs? Like it's, I feel like they are on the fringes of things. I feel like they live in an area that would later be, completely filled in by like Guns N' Roses, because Guns N' Roses was more like, less hairspray, more dirt, kind of thing. But Out of the Set, man, this album is just, the energy never lets up on this album for me. Like, I just think that it just is such a, it's especially if you're wanting this vibe of an album, like it delivers for every single track. And just the fact that they, you know, in 1984, like I don't know. It's like the debut albums this strong will always really like blow my mind to be in a band like that, where you're just like, well, we got a record deal and let's put out our first album. And there's a lot of bands that their first album, there's like some growing pains, or there's some, they'll get there. Wait till album 2 or 3, then it really kicks in. But they were one of those bands where it kicked in immediately. And maybe it was just because of the combination of musicians, you know, put all those dudes together. They had a lot of great energy and a lot of really different kinds of energy. If you like really look at the band, they had a kind of different dynamics, because you had, you know, Stephen Pearcy is very just like a smooth, sexy frontman kind of guy,
smooth criminal.
That, and then you had Warren DeMartini, who seemed like the dude that like, he wasn't really interested in necessarily being a rock star. He was just like the guy that was just, I'm a fucking killer guitar player and riff writer. And then you got like Juan Krauschier, or however you pronounce his last name, that he was the dude that I always felt like he was trying a little bit too hard. Like he always seemed like he talked very fast, and he was always like, yeah. And I'm in Ratt. I'm the bass player. I'm like, okay, we get it. You're very excited to be here. And he was the one that had all the moves. He would do like the whip around with the bass, and he would do like a weird thing where it's down below the desk, but he would like shake his knees and then lock his legs. He would do like all these different moves. He was the guy that was very just like, I'm not just a bass player. I'm also something you can watch for my dance moves.
Here's the thing though, like if you're a bass player in an 80s hair metal band, unless you're extreme, you're not doing an awful lot barring like the root notes.
That's true.
So you might as well dance around like
I mean, the same token, that's why Bobby Dahl also had like moves that he would do. I'm like, that's so unnecessary for you to do all of this weird kicking stuff that you're doing. But it's like, oh, he's the bass player of Poison. He's not, you know, he doesn't have a lot to prove. But and then of course you get, you know, Robin Crosby, who was like the big sexy. That's, you know, and then you had home dude on the drums. What's his name?
Bobby Blotzer.
I don't know why his name always just eludes me, but he always seemed like kind of a goofball, like of the group.
Yeah,
he seemed like the dude that was the most goofy out of everybody.
I love that in the Round and Round video, you can barely see him unless he jumps up to choke the cymbal and sits back down, and then he's just hidden behind this fucking wall of toms.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Round and Round is on Out of the Cellar, my #1 album, and that's a fucking quintessential 80s hard rock song. Like if you were going to make, you know, top 20 hard rock songs of the 80s, Round and Round should fucking be on there, because
it's got to be in there.
Even if Steven doesn't tell you why, it doesn't matter, which is another Ratt song. But either way,
it's all part of the mystique. You got to remember.
That's true. That's true.
It's you can't give it all away at once.
Yeah.
Giving yourself away.
There you go, man. But Steven's just all about the vibe. He's all about the vibe with his vocals. He's like what's it? He's
we like, out here.
We
out here. We vibing.
He's like Jason Lee in Almost Famous, where he's like, I get people off. I find the one person in the crowd that's not getting off, and I make them get off.
I think I saw like it was like one of the most ridiculously 80s interviews I've ever seen with anyone, but I think it was in like a Ratt home video. I don't know if it was the Detonator one, but there is one from earlier on, and he's there and he's got like a cigarette or so. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but he's like, yeah, so I was gonna drive like race cars. You know, it's like talking about like he'd done like racing in cars and shit, but he was like, nah, I just decided to be a fucking rock star instead.
I'm pretty sure I think that was on the first one, which I think is called Ratt the Video.
Yeah.
And it's got like that's the one where like I think it follows them to like Japan where they're treated like the fucking Beatles in Japan.
Yeah.
Which I guess that happened a lot with American rock bands back in the day. Like they would blow up and then all of a sudden go to Japan and everything. All of a sudden you're massive rock stars.
Hell,
Anyway.
Mr. Big had like a whole shtick around it. They would release live albums called like Raw Like Sushi. And they did quite a few of those, didn't they? It was like
But
2 or
Mr.
3.
Big, yeah, I think Mr. Big is still. I mean, I don't think they're a band anymore because the drummer passed away, unfortunately. But I think they remained massive in Japan. Like that's the thing is that, like, other countries it continued to embrace rock and roll when our countries were taking a shit on it. So.
Sad state of affairs.
Yeah,
but
anyway, that's I'm done talking about Out of the Cellar. That was my number one, which
nice.
That didn't change. I believe that was my number one back when I did my old ranking, but a lot of the middle part of my thing kind of shifted around a little bit. But yeah, there you go, Ratt.
Noise.
3, 2, 1,
we did it.
We're always a little off from each other, but it's.
My end was.
I know you're probably on board, but the technology of us being overseas from each other, everything's always a little tiny bit off.
Don't worry, I heard it as it will sound in the final cut.
Well, in the podcast, but in the video, we're going to be off, and it's going to sound awful.
Oh,
because there's no way I would have to do a lot of fancy editing. Maybe I will. Maybe just for this occasion, I'm going to edit that together to where it looks like we're right on with each other.
Yeah, I like that.
So did I do it, folks? I know I did it in the podcast world because that's fucking easy. The podcasters the podcasters really get a better product than the video people do, because not only is the editing better, but you don't have to look at us, and so I feel like it's a win-win situation right there. All right. Yeah. Well, that's Ratt. We did it. We did Ratt. And I love Ratt. They're one of my favorites from the 80s. I honestly put them above Motley Crue. I mean, I can't think of another band.
Consistent.
I can't think of another band from the 80s hard rock band that I think I like more than Ratt. So there you go.
Pretty Boy Floyd.
Rock and roll is gonna set the night on fire. That was their hit song.
Yeah.
although I saw like they're still around. I say it's a band with the original lead singer still doing Pretty Boy Floyd. But the dude can still sing. So I'm just like, good on you, man. Because that's the one thing that like really like makes me want to see some of these bands if the vocalists can still pull it off. That's why like I'm still on board with Bullet Boys, because Home Dude can still sing like fucking crazy.
Yeah, like
some
that's
of them
the thing.
Can still do it.
You set such a high bar. They set such a high bar in the 80s with like their vocals, and then some of them looked after their voices and some of them really didn't.
Yeah.
And some are in better shape than others. The whole Vince
Neil. Are we
Neil
talking about Vince Neil here?
Well, he's an example that comes up a lot, and I'm with you. It's kind of low hanging fruit at this point to kind of dog on him.
Yeah.
But I hope he can, somehow get in a bit better shape and be able to perform better. But that's for his own sake, above all else.
At the end of the day, if nobody bought tickets, then that would be the end of that. But
yeah.
And look at this, right at the very end of the episode, your mic is getting farty.
Is it farting?
Yep, it is. I might just keep this in the episode. Just this is how it happens with our fancy, not so fancy microphones that we use.
Does it still do it if I whisper quite politely?
I have no idea what you were just saying.
That's my
It's so weird because not only does it get really distorted, but then it also has echo to it too. So it's fucking weird. But I'm leaving this in for everybody watching, because we give you more value for your money or your time.
I've tried turning the volume down in an effort to see if it was a feedback issue.
No,
It is
it's just
it's completely muted at this point.
But now it's going away. Now it's starting to, because it does that. You give it a couple minutes and then all of a sudden it sounds normal again.
What a strange thing we encounter on this show.
Yeah.
I mean,
with
farts.
I mean, with my microphone, I have to restart my computer every time we start to record because all of a sudden I'll be out of sync. And so I have to, so it's just, technology is, I mean, honestly, if we both were more serious about this, we could spend $300-$400 on a microphone and probably wouldn't have the problem we do, but we bought the low end Yetis. So
we reap what we sow.
I guess this is not the lowest you can go with the Yeti mics, but it's hey Yeti, you want to sponsor us and send us some good shit? So then we can do some ads and be like, listen to how good we sound.
Endorsement.
See what I'm saying? How we went off? Yeah, that's it. That's technology, folks. Anyway, this show has ended in a really lame way. We're already done, and yet we're just still hanging on, not really talking about anything, not even an interesting tangent about weird science or anything.
Post Ratt clarity.
Yeah, this is just we're just winding down. It's the cigarette after sex, I guess. We're just yeah. I don't smoke, so I might have a sandwich or something. All right, so yeah, so because of that, thank you. If you guys made it through that whole farty distorted microphone thing, then you are an ultimate peanut butter platypus. And if so, why would you not want to equip yourself with some good merch from the merch store, myspreadshop.com? No, oldhead.myspreadshop.com, something like that. If it's in YouTube, look down below. Go buy some shit.
I swear I thought you were going to make a Yeti endorsement joke there for a second.
I mean, one of these days we're gonna have a sponsor, and we're gonna get to do those cool live ads that the other cool podcasters. That's why we're never gonna get it, because I couldn't even say the word podcaster.
Wow,
never gonna
new print, little yellow. Different.
Yeah. It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
I can't think about it anymore. It's giving me a headache.
I'm sorry, I went backwards from where you were. Anyway, next time we'll be doing an entire reenactment of Wayne's World. No, actually, next time we won't even be here. We're taking a week off, folks, after this. I know. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say we should do that. We should print off for both of us the entire script of Wayne's World and just quote it back to one another. That'd be funny as fuck. I'd love that.
Okay, we'll work on that. But yes, next week, unfortunately, I know we took several weeks off and we were gone, but now we're gonna be gone one other week. I got family things I gotta be involved in. So we're going to take the week off, but then we're coming back with another band discography after that. And it's going to be a fairly big one. And one that, I think a lot of people will be excited about. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, so this is it for Ratt Peanut Butter Platypus. To those of you who are still here in this sort of weird meandering ending where I feel like I should have already ended it 10 minutes ago, but,
I was thinking then I was thinking that I was gonna leave it a little thing here that would say, hey, being as we're gonna be off for 2 weeks, listen to this listen to one half this week and the other half next week. But then I just realized if they're at the end of the fucking episode, then they've already listened to the whole thing.
Here's what you do. Go back and listen to this again next week, because you probably missed a lot of the nuances of our genius comedy tangents. So or go back and listen to shit from the beginning. We've done fucking 70 episodes, some shit like that. A lot of episodes we've done of this show.
We done a lot of shit.
Anyway, all right. So that's it. We won't keep you here any longer. Get on with your lives. We'll see you in a couple weeks. It's been lovely. Thank you for listening to Cranked and Ranked. And as usual, I'm going to throw it over to Eddie Sparxx to take us out.
Later, dude. Later, no. I don't know how to do Stephen Piercy.